On behalf of the Orange Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau, welcome to the July 2nd meeting issues. It's midsummer. I mean, I can't believe we're already in midsummer, which is amazing. Before we dive into some things about power and electrification with our guest speaker, has anyone who, or not has anyone, but who attended our Best of Awards and installation? A couple people, okay. Did you have fun?
Yes.
Good. It was such a great time, so thank you everyone for joining us there. Do we have any Best of Award winners here? If you do, please raise your hands. Raise them high so I can see them. If you wouldn't mind, tell us your name and what you won.
My name is Cindy Paulson. I work for Fieldstein CPAs, and we got Best Accounting Office.
Yeah, you did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
There were about 65 winners, so we do have some winners who are maybe sleeping in, maybe tuning in on Facebook Live. We don't know where you are, but congratulations. We also have some exciting news on the front of our board. So it was also our board installation, so we do have a new chair. Our past chair is here. Rick, where are you? Thank you. Such a fun year, and it goes by so quickly. I feel like we're already well into the next year, and it's only the end of July. We have a brand new board chair that is Adam Carr, so hopefully if you see him around town, say hello, say congratulations. His business is right in the middle of downtown, so you can always stop in. I wouldn't say stop in, but give him a call. Say congratulations, and congrats, Adam. And with that, I would like to welcome our guest. We have Cynthia Quimby. She is our Government Relations Manager at Southern California Edison. Welcome, Cynthia. So glad to have you back. So as you know, we like to read your bio just so people can kind of get a feel for who you are. So I do have your binder. Do you mind if I read it?
I don't mind.
All right, so we have Cynthia Quimby, serves as Government Relations Manager for Southern California Edison, where she represents SCE in its relationship within cities and communities in Orange County. Prior to working for SCE, Cynthia was the owner of a fundraising and event planning firm, providing services for federal, state, and local candidates and elected officials, as well as nonprofit organizations and political action committees. Before founding Quimby Group Consulting, Cynthia served as Deputy Chief of Staff for a state senator in Orange County. Her other work experience includes working for a leading public affairs firm in Washington, D.C., concentrated on media relations. Cynthia is a former recipient of the OC Black Chamber's Marlene R. Dice Business Empowerment Award. The California Women's Leadership Association also named her as a Woman to Watch in the Movers and Shakers category. No surprise. She is also a recipient of Edison International's Customer Hero Award and Southern California Edison's WOW Outstanding Business Partner Award. Cynthia currently serves on the board of directors for Goodwill of Orange County, the Orange County Taxpayers Association, the Community Foundation of Orange, and the Greater Irvine Chamber of Commerce. She also serves as committee chair for the Greater Irvine Chamber's Public Policy Council and on Edison International's EIPAC Advisory Council. Cynthia earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in Communication Studies from UCLA and a Master's in Business Administration from UCLA's Anderson School of Business. She lives in Irvine with her husband Jason and their 3 children. Well, Cynthia, that's a lot. Welcome back.
It means I'm old.
How long has it been since we chatted here in this chair? Like 3
It's so
years?
crazy. I looked it up. I thought it was maybe 2 years, but it was 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Crazy. Yeah, it just wild. Oh, can you believe that?
It doesn't seem like 4 years. I also thought it was about 2 years. I'm like, it's been a while.
Yeah, it was
Well,
a while.
welcome back.
Thank you.
Love to have you in this chair.
Thank you so much.
For those who haven't had a chance to meet you, can you just dive right in? Can you tell us about your role and how you work in the community?
Absolutely. So as Brookhanda mentioned, I'm a government relations manager for Southern California Edison, and as you can imagine, with regulated electric utility that services all types of customers, we have a lot of issues that we deal with our city, cities that maybe are getting calls from residents and customers in town. And so really my main role is to work with the city council and public works director, city manager, city engineer, key staff at the city to one, make sure they're aware of our initiatives and things we're prioritizing, changes with the company that may affect customers, but also to be their point of contact, because Edison's a pretty big place and can be kind of tough sometimes to figure out where to go. And so they have one person they can come to and ask questions or escalate something from a customer. addition to that, I really see my role as, trying to understand communities because, again, we'll probably get into some of these issues, but I really see, Edison's relationship with, especially the business community, it's a strategic partnership. It's not just, kind of transactional where we just, send you a bill and you get power. There's a lot of challenges right now and we really need to work together. And so that's why, I serve on boards. I meet with, community leaders. I try to show up to things because one, I want to make sure you know how to reach us and you see a face to the company, but also I want to hear from the community and understand what the challenges and issues are, locally.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining that. I know that, sorry, I'm like, 1 second.
Take your time. While you're doing that, I'll also mention, I also serve in an emergency management role for the company. A lot of people don't know that. So when we have, like fire, risky weather, or, if there were to be an earthquake or any kind of a major emergency that impacts power, I actually am on duty certain times of the year. I'm FEMA trained, so I serve as a liaison officer, and we would stand up what we call an incident management team to basically work with our various agencies to, to deal with whatever that emergency is. So that's another part of my role that maybe is not seen by the community.
Yeah, we had no idea. That's amazing. Well, I know many people see SCE as just a utilities company, but it's so much more than that. It has to do with economic development. Can you tell us how the company attracts and improves things for the community and how that works?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So, I think, what I would want everyone to, again, kind of going back to what I just said, I think for a long time it was kind of like we provided power, people get a bill, it is what it is. But I think increasingly, especially for businesses, it needs to be a strategic relationship because businesses actually, when they're looking at where am I going to go and locate, they're going to, check and see is there power there, right? Like, are we going to have to wait, 5-10 years to get what we need to serve the needs of whatever the business is, and especially as we're seeing, increases in electricity demand, there's more challenges and strains on the grid, and we're trying to keep up with that. We're working very hard to invest to be sure we're ready for the future. But I think that, that's something that's really important is making sure we understand your needs. We're hearing from you. We're talking to the city. We know about, major housing development that's coming into town or a big expansion at Chalk or whatever it may be that is going to further, put demand on the grid. And so, I think that's, for businesses, electricity, and I was talking to a couple of you today, that it's a big part of your business planning, right? And your competitive advantage is if you have power available and it fits where you can still be profitable and it's not like breaking the bank. Those are really important for businesses. So that strategic partnership is very important.
Definitely. Now with AI, electrification, and data centers increasing demand for electricity, how are you all planning for those changes and what does that mean for local businesses over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about this. It's a really interesting topic, with the data centers, and kind of, I think there's concern too. People are worried, like, if this is gonna, all the new build, right, to be able to meet the demand, are we gonna be stuck with, higher rates because of what's coming in, right? And the good news on that front is there's, in Sacramento, there's a lot of discussion on this, but I think at the federal level too, there's a lot of discussion on this, but really we're looking at working together with those, business owners to figure out ways that they would pay their fair share so it's not coming back to the everyday, customer although it's a good thing. But all of these increases in demands, it's also, more EVs on the road, right? Buildings are going to increasingly become more electric. And, the data centers, certainly AI, huge, amounts of load needed for these types of entities. So we're investing, literally billions of dollars right now to try to meet the needs of the future, doing forecasting, meeting with these customers to look for solutions, and just understand what needs to be done to be ready for it. Yeah, and the impact, of course, to small businesses or, medium-sized businesses would be that, you want to make sure power is available for your needs too. So that forecasting thing is very important.
Definitely. Is that something people ask you a lot about?
Lately, that's kind of a new topic. And actually, I think I flipped on the news over the weekend. They were literally talking about data centers and And so it's a national story and it's catching a lot of attention. In California, we are bringing data centers in, and so that is, I think it is a topic that people care about.
Okay. I know something else we care about, especially here in Orange, is wildfire mitigation. I know you and I have spoken about that a number of times. What are we working on here as far as the city of Orange is concerned and the surrounding areas, and how do you expect that some of the mitigation will benefit the community?
Great question. So maybe I'll just take a minute and talk a little bit about Edison's wildfire mitigation efforts. So obviously a huge priority, and we know that some of the historic, unfortunately the worst wildfires, most devastating wildfires really have taken place in the last maybe 15 years. And so I'd say since probably I joined the company in 2020, and this was already in full motion, but probably from about like 2018, 2019, the company started investing a lot of money into wildfire mitigation efforts. And the big focus was on what we call covered conductor. And so what that is on the overhead lines. It's basically an insulation. So if there's some foreign object that were to hit the lines in a windy event where there's dry fuels and it's very hot, it would essentially bounce off. It would protect from that ignition from sparking. And so it's a very effective tool, relatively cost effective, but we've invested a lot of money, and I think we've completed, by now it's got to be like close to 90% of the overhead lines in our high fire risk areas in our service territory. So that's been a big effort. Increasingly we're doing more undergrounding. That was something I'd say probably the last time I was here, I was saying, oh, we don't do much of that, and part of that is because the terrain, you'll hear PG&E up in the north did a ton of undergrounding, but it's a different service territory, different kind of terrain. Here it's not always as effective, but there are places where it certainly does help, and we have done more undergrounding. The cost is a lot. So basically for 1 mile, I think I've heard quoted it's around like $3 million. So I remember hearing some people, some candidates actually, talk about undergrounding on Tustin Avenue, but the reality would be you'd have to actually for 2 sides of the street it would be $3 million on each side of the street, and then that doesn't account for the cost to each of the businesses, to each of the customers, right? So someone's got to pay for that too, but it's costly, and that's why everything isn't underground. And in addition to that, it's tougher to detect problems, tougher to make repairs, when everything's underground. When it's overhead, we can see when there's issues. So that's a big part of it. Vegetation management, that's when we work with our cities, if a customer, and please, if you see, something coming in contact with our lines or it looks like it could and you're concerned it's an issue, you can reach out to the city or reach out to me. We do have a vegetation management department that does annual inspections, and they go out and they clear those lines to make sure that everything's safe. We also have installed wildfire cameras. We are doing other regular maintenance on all of our circuitry in high fire areas and inspections. So there's a lot of elements to what we do. And then of course there's the public safety power shutoffs, which are not our customers' favorite. It's not something we want to do certainly at Edison. We're in the business of keeping the lights on, but it's really a tool of last resort. So we have those very high winds. We've got hot weather, and then the fuels. We haven't had rain for a while, so there's basically modeling that we do to see what is the risk of like ignition and fire spread, right? Any of those factors. And when we have those really risky conditions, we do implement the public safety power shutoffs. And so I did look up a little bit about Orange. So we have about 7 PSPS circuits in the city of Orange, all kind of on the eastern part of the city and kind of north of OPA as well. And then we've completed 51 miles of covered conductor on circuits that serve Orange since 2019.
Oh, wow.
So that's a considerable amount of work. 3 miles of undergrounding on a couple of those kind of key circuits that do have those public safety power shutoffs when we have those events. And then we've installed a couple of what we call switching devices on one of those main circuits as well. And what that basically allows us to do is if we have to shut off power, we can basically go, okay, just this segment, needs to be shut off, for the the risk that we're concerned about, but we can actually automatically switch them onto another circuit so that there's less, customer impact. So that's something that benefits the city. And then we have actually about 16 miles of covered conductor scheduled, on several circuits. And so there's work still ongoing that will benefit the city, but a lot of work's been done in the city of Orange.
Yeah, definitely. I know I took a look at the plan online, and it shows you kind of the percentages over the years, and there has been a lot of work in the past 4 years, really since our last chat. A lot of work has been done, which is nice.
Absolutely, it's a major priority. So I would say, making sure the lights are on with obviously a priority that safety is at the forefront of everything we do. So, we want to protect our infrastructure, but more importantly, our communities, property, and our crews too.
Right.
Keeping everybody safe.
Does the shut-offs, so when we're doing the undergrounding and the covering of those, does that mean that there would be less? I guess the more they can get done, does that mean less perhaps shut-offs?
In theory, yes. Yeah. It should mitigate, and actually when we have the covered conductor, the baseline, so they look at wind thresholds, again, it's not just winds. That's something I like to emphasize. People think like, oh, when the winds start to kind of blow, Edison's going to shut off our power. It's not just that. We actually had winds last fall, but you'll remember we had a lot of rain, and so that really helped to lower the risk. But when there's covered conductor, basically the wind thresholds all get raised, so it can take more before we determine that we have to shut off power. And then undergrounding, typically we don't that circuitry underneath. That's not going to be something where we're like we have to do a public safety power shut off, because there's nothing. It's really to stop prevent an ignition from simply hitting those overhead lines.
Right, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I forgot to tell everyone, if anyone has a question for Cynthia, she's here for you. She knows, and you all know that I've been here. I can ask questions until tomorrow probably. But definitely if you all have questions, please raise a hand, just let us know. This is a great time to stop if anyone has a question they'd like to ask. Yes.
Hey, good morning. I just had a quick question. So I know you guys are in the power generation, but transmission and distribution as well. Are you guys upgrading infrastructure for transmission and distribution at all, or over time, to just be more efficient so that strain on the grid lessens?
Yes, we're going to have to bring in transmissions. There's going to be projects you're seeing in the future. That part of it is they could be projects where the state's actually saying we need to bring more in to meet clean energy goals. But in addition to that, as we're seeing, like I said, that increased load growth in the region, we at times will go to the CPUC and say and we have to basically do a lot of planning throughout the year. There's a lot of requirements where we have to show like this is what we're projecting the load growth to be, and the CPUC will tell us you need to bring in more transmission for so that you're ready for the future. So yeah, that is something you'll see more of, and I think everybody understands. But like the transmission side that Brendan's talking about is really about the generation and like bringing the power into the region, and then of course when we talk about like PSPS or kind of the circuitry you see, most of the time that's the distribution lines where it comes from the substation into your business, to give you power. So yeah.
Great question, Meredith.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I've got one really quick pretend. This is maybe a silly one, Cynthia, but I was thinking about your namesake, Southern California Edison, and does that connect back to the founder of the light bulb?
Yeah. I believe so. I don't know a lot of the history. I know we went through different renditions of Edison Electric, and I know the company is like 130 years old. I think Elizabeth Holloman had actually looked up, and Edison had been a member, since like 1905 or something like that. Yeah, we've been a long time member. One of my other chambers looked it up, and they had records from the 20s.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, it's been around a long time, but I think so. And there are actually a lot of utilities in the country I've come across that are Edison also. So but I will circle back and get the
I'm
detailed
just curious.
answer. Yeah, that's a great question.
Good.
There you go.
Please
Would you like to answer that question?
I don't have to circle back.
Yes, when you use the name Edison, you pay for it. Originally, you have to pay, and I don't recall the name of the foundation you paid to use that name, but Con Edison and what's the one in Chicago, Commonwealth Edison, all of us have paid to use that. And at one time, there was a cute little figure that was a sticker you looked like lightning with a light bulb for a face on it. You pay to use that logo. It's one that it's been around forever, and yes, but they decided to make money off of it when the companies went to power, where they were just doing electric. They wanted the name Edison in there. I laugh because we have our Duke of Orange. Cam is so cute. Every once in a while, he'll call us comment. And I go, no, we're Southern California Edison out here. I said that was in New York.
Everybody knows Pat Buttress, but Pat, actually, I don't like to say that I served in the same role that she served in, because like it's impossible shoes to fill, of course, even though my feet are, I'm sure, bigger than her. She's just been such a wonderful mentor and friend, and just such a wealth of knowledge. She knows so much. And a lot of people don't know, she was actually, I believe, the first female planner at Edison.
Yes.
So she didn't just do public affairs, but she actually has a technical background. So she's just really a jewel. We're very lucky to have her in the community still.
Okay, you were kind to say that to me, but Cynthia, I can't think of anybody I'd rather have follow me. You have done a fabulous job. You've gotten out, and that's what's important. The people know you, and you're a face for Southern California Edison, and you're a very articulate one. So
Yes.
yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, just think of some more. We can ask more questions. So if I have some more, we'll go back to my questions. What are businesses telling you that are their biggest concerns right now?
Definitely affordability. I think it's top of mind for, and Dara and I were just talking before as well. It's a concern, and you're trying to plan and make everything balanced and make sure you're going to be profitable. And there's variables, right? So one of the things I was mentioning, to Dara, and want to mention to everybody is, again, that strategic partnership is really important. I think a lot of, the big businesses have an assigned account manager at Edison that they work with in customer service. So they've kind of got that go-to person. They can talk to you about programs or ways that they can take advantage of, or, looking at like efficiency, right, for their businesses. But a lot of small businesses don't realize we have a lot of resources available. It might not be like a one-stop shop, but we've got a great website. You can just go to SCE.com and look up like small business resources, and I can get you specific websites, of course. But you'll find there's a lot of programs. We have like training, for your workforce that you can take advantage of up in Urbandale, our Urbandale location. And then we have this great tool. It's called the rate comparison tool. So just go to SCE.com and you can look that up, and you can plug in some information. It'll actually like let you know, are you on the best rate plan? And of course you can call customer service too and say you want to talk to someone. We've got consultants that can work with you. So definitely take advantage of those resources. And then in addition to that, in customer service, we've got a department, like an economic development department. So there's account managers that specifically work with businesses and also cities. Sometimes I bring them out to talk to cities. Get out and come to the chamber, maybe Patty, and do a talk. But they're privy to all the tax incentives or rebate programs or grants that might be available, and they'll get engaged even sometimes with cities if they're trying to attract a business, or if your business is thinking about leaving California. They'll come in and try to see if we can come up with a more attractive package and look at ways to lower bills. So there are a lot of resources available.
I know a lot of businesses definitely want maybe a cost structure that they can't manage. Utilities, I think it's not a difficult one, but it is something you definitely stay on top of and work with those people to see what we can do.
Exactly, and I'd say like if we really pay attention to your bills too. I hear stories, like 12 months will go by and then a business owner will notice like, oh gosh, like 8 months ago things just went haywire, like something went wonky, and they just assume, oh, it's just rates keep going up. But sometimes there may be an actual issue, something's draining, and there might be a fix. And so I'd say just making sure you're really vigilant about looking at your bills, because if like 2 years goes by, it's a lot tougher for our customer service folks to go back and remedy it. But if it's been like a month or two, they might be able to go in, number one, fix whatever the issue is and figure out what the problem is, but also maybe work with you on your bill.
Okay. Now, as far as businesses that are already established, if they're looking to remodel, add new equipment, make any changes, when's the best time to reach out?
as early as possible. So yeah, I would say that is, I know, a huge challenge, right? Is that planning process, and I think it always takes longer than a business is expecting. And so I even tell my cities, when I meet with them, I say, if you know a business is going to come into town, please have them contact Edison like right now, even when they're like thinking about doing something, especially if it's going to be a business that's going to really pull a lot of load from the grid. Those conversations need to start as early as possible. Also, so they can just get informed, right? Like, what are the timelines? Like, if they think like, oh, we want to open our doors in 4 months, well, that might not even be possible. So we don't want you to start spending money and getting contractors and doing things, and then be surprised and there's nothing that can be done. So those conversations definitely want to start as early as possible. And then as you go through the process, another thing just to be aware of is we do really need like full submittal packages before you actually have load reserved. And so I think that's another problem that comes up a lot, that comes across my desk, is a business will say, well, we did talk to Edison and now they're saying the load isn't available, but you actually have to like submit actual plans before anything's reserved. So on the customer end, a lot of times a year will lapse and they'll come back and go, we have these discussions and now the power's not available, but you actually have to be vigilant about keeping up with your own timeline on the customer end too, to meet whatever those initial discussions we're talking about. So yeah, it's a lot of communication, and it's really easy for there to be a breakdown, because for anybody who's in the construction world or has worked on projects, that there can be supply issues, right, with materials. There's just so many things that can go wrong. So planning ahead and building in buffer time is really important.
For those people who aren't able to work with you, let's say, I know we have many businesses that have multiple locations. How does somebody find you, I guess, in their city?
So, really, actually, I'm not in customer service. So,
Right.
so really for the businesses, you're going to want to, need contact with customer service, and you can just call the customer service line, and they will put you in contact with the resources you need. So, I know people, we did have a few years ago, some changes with our customer service system and our software and our back-end program, and there were delays. But my understanding is now, if you call Edison, it's a reasonable amount of time. You should be able to get through to somebody. So use customer service, and they'll get you the resources you need. But then, of course, if you're having problems, if you've got a project, there are times, like, there are so many projects on all of our planners' desks, and maybe something did slip through the cracks. And certainly, if you're not getting the response that you need and can't get a hold of somebody, you can reach out. And the city won't like me saying this, but I mean, there is a me that's assigned to every city, and they know how to reach out to the public affairs representative who can help escalate within the company. So yeah, don't call the city as a first resort. They don't control electricity, but certainly if you need to get a hold of someone, you can do that.
I would imagine, yes. And I know as a consumer of the services, I know on the app, there's so many different ways to reach different people on the app, that's just as a consumer. So I'd imagine on the business side, hopefully I'm sure it's even more robust for businesses, because they're spending so much more money. Hopefully, I know
Well,
there's more.
all of our customers are important. We treat them orderly, truly. So yeah, but yeah, there are business resources, because we know that electricity is a big part of the equation for your success. So
Well, I know I received in the mail, and I don't know if anyone else did, or not the mail, so in my email, that there is a, I guess, public hearing. What was that about? So let's see. Public hearing regarding disconnections, reconnections, and customer affordability that's coming up. And so I wanted to ask you, I saw that, it came over on Friday, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty timely. I'm like, and I saw it came from multiple utilities, but SCE, I think, has sent a couple, and I saw it come through us on the app as well. But what does that mean for the consumer and for the businesses? Like, so everybody, I'm guessing, probably receives something like that. Why should they attend that, and why should they be part of something like that?
yeah, so the CPUC regularly holds hearings on a variety of issues. So sometimes we do filings with the CPUC when it comes to funding, when it comes to maybe policy changes that are impacting our company, and we may see something as not being a good thing for our customers, so we may go proactively to them. And then they also hold hearings and look at policy changes ongoing for all the utilities, not just for Edison. So you will get those notices when there's a public hearing coming up on a key issue that impacts customers. And you can always go to the CPUC website. That's separate from us, and we actually have rules. We don't coordinate, to get you to call in or do things. But if there's an issue that's important to you, so that particular one, I without reading it, it's probably dealing with, can we, like, if a customer's not paying their bill, can we shut them off? How much do we have to notice them? Like, kind of, what is that process? And so, yeah, if you have strong opinions, it's kind of like going to city council. Like, you can call in, you can show up in person oftentimes. They have in-person hearings, and you can go give public comment and weigh in. And I know there's ways you can write in too and submit comments.
If you don't mind, if I can throw in a fun question. So, a fun business.
I'll try to do that.
No, I did notice in looking through the website, there's so many things to see on the website. There's so many facets of the company, from what you do in the community for STEM and all the different things. But one thing that caught my attention, and no one's going to be surprised, is the Land Rodeo. So has anyone here ever attended one of the Land Rodeos? I think it's employees, but have you ever gone to one? The Land Rodeo?
No.
I'm surprised you haven't. I actually haven't gone either, but I really want to go. So
We're going next year, for sure.
Let's go. But they're amazing. I mean, they basically, they climb poles, they do competitions, and they get really competitive. And our linemen are absolutely incredible. I don't know if does anybody in the room have a family member that's a lineman or a friend, or they work. What's that?
I said, no, but I sure worked around.
You worked around
a lot of them.
They're, highly skilled, highly trained, very brave, right? Like, a lot of times I've met a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but a few that I've met, they may come from military or law enforcement in a previous life, but it's a certain type of person, right? Because you're a first responder. It's very dangerous work also. Like, you're climbing up electrical poles, dealing with things like under pressure, high up, and it's a really impressive career, and it's a great career, by the way. So we have the lineman rodeo to kind of showcase their talent and what they can do, and they come from all over the service territory. But we also, I'll mention, we have a lineman scholarship that is available once a year too. That if anybody has again, it's tough, right? Because it's like if you have a child, sending them to be in the military, which is super admirable, but as I'm a mom myself, it can be a little scary. And being a lineman, there's no question it's a risky career, but it's a great career. They do very well, and I think it's a very fulfilling career with a lot of opportunity for advancement. Really rewarding, because you're a first responder. You're helping our communities and keep their power on. So anyway, but yes, let's go. I'd like to see it. So next time you ask me, I can tell you all the details.
Okay, perfect. In the calendar. Before we close out, I want to just ask you about legislative and regulatory issues. What should we be looking for, and where can the community be part of those?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, this is one way the chamber can collaborate, with us when I talk about that strategic partnership, especially at the public affairs level, is making sure we're talking. And, I see several friends in the room, that are in the public affairs space and kind of serve on boards. And so just making sure we're communicating, because really, affordability, infrastructure being, built in a timely manner, all of these issues impact all of our businesses and the region, frankly. But yeah, one of the big things, that's been a priority for us is definitely permitting reform and CEQA reform. And so, there's actually, it was a coalition called the Building Affordable California Act, which is now Prop 45. It's qualified for the ballot this November. So that is dealing with CEQA reform, and it doesn't just impact electrical equipment and infrastructure, but it impacts even regional hospitals and water utilities and all of the infrastructure. Just making sure that can move forward in a timely manner, which is important for economic development for our region. And so for us, that is a really important issue. On the affordability front, there's some bills that are dealing with. If you look at the breakdown of what you're actually charged for when you pay your electricity bill, there's probably 4%, I believe, is towards public purpose programs. So this is efficiency programs that help low income customers, admirable things, right? But when the rubber meets the road, we obviously have to look at, what are kind of those discretionary things and does it make sense, right? Because you've got customers that maybe are barely making ends meet and they're helping to pay, for those programs that are included. So there's legislation looking at that. There's also a bill, that basically will allow CAISA, which is the agency that is responsible for California's electric grid, like making sure we have the resources we need. And it would create an integrated Western regional energy market. So this would basically allow us to procure energy from a bigger region more quickly, and it would save on costs, which could help with affordability and customer bills. So that's another one to watch. And then data centers, we talked about that too, just ensuring that, the data centers are paying their fair share, and that's not all being, passed on to everyday customers as well. So yeah, and then a lot of legislation obviously dealing with wildfire, ensuring that utilities are solvent, that we, it's in everybody's best interest that, utilities don't go bankrupt. And so we want to make sure there's something that makes sense where we're contributing to that equation, to, any issues that come up when we have the fires that we saw unfortunately last year, that we're paying our fair share, but also that there's, our investors feel secure that, that Edison's not going to go away, because the investors withdraw, that's also going to impact reliability and customer bills as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you for sharing those. We're near the end. Do we have any final questions from anyone out there? Pat?
I don't have a question, but if Cynthia will indulge me, I'm gonna make a statement. We talk about wanting to get transmission power into our area to help our businesses, to help our residents, because we use a lot of power. Right now is a good example, 3 weeks of heat. I'll guarantee you every single one of us who have air conditioning, that air conditioner's been going. Transmission back when I was with Edison could take 12 to 15 years of regulatory process to get the lines actually up and functioning. So I just want everybody to understand, it is a process that goes through multi-levels of government, not just local, not just county, not just state, but federal. It is a long process to get power into this state. So don't think any of this can be resolved overnight. It's going to take time. And I know Edison has done due diligence to try and do this for us. So for people like Cynthia, who's in the public affairs arena, we have to thank them because they bring it out to us, but we do get a lot of NIMBYs. And NIMBYs who don't want it in their yard, can't blame them, those towers aren't pretty. But it is the only way you're going to get high-end power into the communities. Those are 500 kV lines and 220s. So just hang in there. I know Southern California Edison is doing the very best they can to make sure we always have power.
Go first. I already asked one.
Great seeing you, Cynthia. Have you ever been to the coffee shop in the old historic Art Deco, the SoCal Edison building in downtown LA? That's worth the visit. It is, yeah. I was photographing for a parking company in downtown LA, and the owner was taking me to all these structures. One of the ones they look after is the parking at that building. And this guy was a coffee guy, so we went in there, and what an amazing building. Apparently,
Yes.
it's called the SoCal. You probably know about it. What a cool
It
building.
was around when I started, but we moved to Rosemead 1 year after I started.
Okay,
So.
but wow, what a building. So if you're ever, I don't know if you're ever in that area, or where their office is now, I don't know, but that's well worth a visit to that building.
They're in Rosemead.
Okay.
There's a huge campus in Rosemead
Okay.
of Edison buildings. I think the last time I checked, there were 5 different structures,
Right.
probably more, but
But anyway, great building you
And
showed.
remind me where to go and coffee.
I have one, and Cynthia, can you remind us, I think I've heard a little bit about some of the scholarships that Edison does for the community, and I think this group would love to hear it. We've got young people, families, and kids, so can you tell us more about
This
that?
topic, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, it's literally my favorite part of my job is the end of each year. So I think the applications open October, I want to say. And we do have a lot of relations with counselors' offices in our schools in our service territory. I know El Medina has had some recipients come out of the high school, but yeah, it's really exciting. It's a $50,000 scholarship, so it's substantial, and it goes to students that are going to a four-year university. They have to have I think a 3.0 GPA. They have to be studying in a STEM-related field, and then there's an income qualification as well. And the students are amazing. I mean, they're amazing in life. Like, a lot of them have gone through, like, actually, real hardship that, like, you think 16-year-olds don't go through, but they may have gone through something personally. But they're literally, serving on commissions and, interning at nonprofits and, coming up with plans on how to, fix the species, to mitigate against fire or restore, the vegetation. And I mean, just doing things that I was not even remotely, were not even on my radar when I was their age. It's just so impressive. And, they're getting like, 4.5 GPA and, serving on leadership roles and, working, 20 hours a week, like just incredible. Some of the students I've gotten to meet. And we usually do kind of a surprise. We've had families meet us at the school, and we like surprise them, and and then we do city council presentations when they win. So we got to get another one out of Orange. I don't think we had one last year, but if you know amazing students that might be eligible, please let them know about it. It's a great program, and I mean they start crying because it's for a lot of them like they're concerned. They're going to great colleges, but they're like, I'm going to be in debt forever. This is really hard on my parents, and so. The parents cry too. I would cry. It's very emotional. College expenses. So anyway, it's a great program. Thank you for bringing that up. And yeah, if there are people that we should be talking to, we do have great relations with El Medina, but there are other high schools that I'm sure have great students that would be could benefit from the program. So and we can send it to you, Patty, to just push out to the membership too.
Thank you.
Well, any final word for the business community before we head into some announcements?
I think first, thank you for having me. It's so great I don't know, some of you know I served on the board for I think 3 years, and I love this chamber. Patty is such a great leader, and just so many friends in the room. So it's really fun to be back. I lived in Orange for a while too, so this community is very special to me. But I think I just want to, just reiterate, like for the businesses, definitely take advantage of the resources on our website. Look at that rate comparison tool and just plug in some numbers to see, does it give you any, intel that maybe you should be looking at a different plan. But take advantage of the programs because there may be something that'll benefit your business. And just any questions, reach out to customer service or reach out to me.